Square Ball Podcast.
Well, Phil, big news then. Leeds United and Red Bull. Give us the scoop on this one then. Where are we?
Is this 2014?
I was going to this is actually a David Haig fantasy made real, isn't it? San Francisco 49ers and Red Bull, both of which he flirted with.
Do you know, good point actually. I'd forgotten that they pretended to be in with the 49ers 10 years ago. Yeah. That partnership that just, I've never asked about that actually, I should do, but that partnership that just seemed to be announced and then, disappear into the ether like a lot of things at Leeds. But you remember 10 years ago, this was when it was at its height, there were a lot of links between Red Bull and Leeds, and they did have an interest in the club back then. But it was the end of 2014 when Cellino was owner, when it really got going. I remember that bizarre day where there's a story in the Daily Mail, I think, about Red Bull want to buy Leeds and have made an offer. So I phoned him and said, just wanted to ask you about this. Is this true? No, it's not true. No, it's not. It's a load of rubbish. Okay, fine. I then got a phone call back about 5 minutes later from him saying, actually, it is true. I was lying to you, but, I shouldn't, and that's what's happened. But it didn't go anywhere from there. And then it, kind of disappeared. Radrizzani bought in. I can't remember the last time Red Bull was spoken about as a potential investor, but it feels to me like a decade ago now. Anyway, it may well be that this story is running. I think on the basis that people will be watching this, it will have run by now. Red Bull are about to take a minority stake in Leeds as part of the 49ers Enterprises group, which just seems to get bigger and bigger. And we had Will Ferrell joining it not so long ago. It's been this kind of amalgamation of lots of different parties. So you have the 49ers who themselves are in control, but you've got all these kind of what they call limited partners who've invested different amounts to get themselves involved with the grand plan. So
it's big chunks divvied up into smaller chunks, isn't it?
Basically, yeah. And everybody who comes in adds a little bit more money. What the size of Red Bull's investment is, I don't know at this point, I must be honest, but it's a minority stake from what I'm told. They will also be, or have also been negotiating to be, shirt sponsors next year. So they will replace Boxed as things stand. And assuming this all goes ahead, they will replace Boxed on the front of the shirts for 2024-25.
The biggest commercial deal seen in the history of the EFL.
It will be, yeah. And that's the way it'll be spun positively, is that it's worth a lot of money. And clubs these days, especially there in the Championship, need money, need income, need good revenue. I think it would be, even without knowing how big it is, you would make the assumption that Red Bull on the front of Leeds United shirts is going to be more valuable than any commercial deal that's been done, certainly shirt deal, that's been done by any club in the EFL ever. It's just common sense, and it stands to reason. The issue with Red Bull, and I don't need to tell you this, is that they have a contentious background when it comes to the running of football clubs. So the first thing to say, and again, this is the information we've been told, they won't have a seat on the board. They won't be added to the board as part of this. And I mean, you would say this, but I believe it to be true. There will simply be no discussion about changing club name, changing club shirt, anything like that. I think people involved in this deal are well aware of the kind of, the sensitivities around that and what's gone on elsewhere. And that just seems to be completely off the table. Yeah,
and there's the football regulator issue that should... I know we're now just pre-general election in this country. If you're abroad and not aware of this, stuff will either be pushed through before the end of this Parliament, which is, I think, just about done now, isn't it? It finishes probably Thursday as this comes out, the dissolving Parliament or whatever, so they won't be able to do any more business now until after the general election.
It's never going to happen.
Which is Independence Day. However, it depends on if it's back on the table as a bill for the new government when that assembles after the general election in July. So we shall see is about the size of it. But I know... there's going to be huge resistance to any moves in that direction to change names, because
massively
part of the football governance bill is about protecting identity, stadiums, ownership, that sort of stuff. So that's the big fear from Leeds fans, isn't it? Because Red Bull, global profile, huge profile in sport, terrifying history in Austria, and a bit worrying in Germany, to say the least. What they did to Austria, Salzburg. Which is
Salzburg and Leipzig, it's been major rebranding, hasn't it?
Well, it's not just major rebranding, but in Austria, they effectively wiped out the history of the previous football club and said that they were founded in 2005 after they took over. And then the Austrian FA went, no, you're not doing that. So they dialed back on it, and they've tried to incorporate the history in there, but it's caused a big split in the fans. The fans of the old club formed the Violet Whites, who went off and did their own thing with the Phoenix Club, and then there's the Red and Whites, which is the Red Bull lot, who've stuck with it. It's worrying because they tried to, and well, did up to a point, eliminate the old club completely, and it's a branding exercise, isn't it?
Yeah,
now,
some would call it ruthless commercialism.
Yeah, and set against that is the incredible scouting network and things like that come with the Red Bull organisation. So it's not just a black and white issue. There's a lot of nuance there, but what they did in Austria worries me a great deal, and I would say will fuel any scepticism from a fan's point of view about what they could potentially do with Leeds if, in the long term, a minority stake turns into ownership.
Leipzig was a bit of a strange case because there was not a major club in Leipzig.
It was like an amateur club, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there was a big stadium because it had been left there from the 2006 World Cup. So there was an infrastructure there. And if the geography of Germany, Leipzig is in the Old East, and it stands quite alone, really. There's not much around it. So it was an obvious opportunity for them. I suppose in the same ways, you might look at this bit of the north of England and go, well, Yorkshire's not really got any good clubs. So that would be a good opportunity. And I just want them nowhere near us, if I'm perfectly honest. I think there's... If you said it's just a high-profile shirt sponsor, the red bit on the shirt, maybe it's not ideal. We've had red kite before.
Packard Bell had a bit of red in it.
I'm going to wager it's worth more than the red kite.
I was going to say, I don't feel like Red Kite had quite the same multi-club ownership ambitions as Red Bull. But so that's a minor issue, but it's more that we know what they do. Their whole business model is take over a club, put some bulls on the badge. I know like in the Leipzig variant, they weren't allowed to call them Red Bull Leipzig, were they? So they're
some ball sport, or whatever. Yeah.
So they pretend it's something else, but it's Red Bull Leipzig.
Yeah, and
there are bulls on the badge. There are bulls on the sponsorship.
They've done everything to circumnavigate regulations. Is the worrying aspect of it? Yeah.
When they want this stuff to work, they go at it with a sledgehammer, and they are absolutely ruthless in trying to achieve what they want to achieve. It's been the same in Formula One as well. You can't deny that both Salzburg and Leipzig have been extremely successful. Leipzig you now consider to be established Champions League club, but there is the definite stigma attached. And my feeling with Leeds is that it's almost about the most risky club you could go at with Red Bull.
Bring it on.
I would say that it's quite a traditional fan base.
You reckon? Legacy fans?
Yes. Legacy fans, yeah.
Red Bull they've already stiffed us with John-Kevin Augustin, Rasmus Christensen and Jesse Marsh. What more do they want?
Give us a bit back.
Yeah, I'm not going to blame them for Augustin. I think the fault may have lay elsewhere. But yeah, so there are legitimate questions here that should be asked and will be asked when we get the chance. And I think yes, the involvement itself will concern people naturally. And it might be that there's no reason to be concerned on that front. And I'm absolutely certain that when somebody does speak about this, Marathi or somebody else at the club, they will say, the things that you're concerned about are simply not up for negotiation. Yes, just not.
But Phil,
yeah, I know what you say.
If they take over, and the 49ers are out of the picture.
That will be the wider fear will be that this leads to a creep of increased equity in the way that it did with the 49ers and Radrizzani, and that Red Bull further down the line moved to the point where they acquire the club. And again, at this point, a little bit like Radrizzani used to do, people will tell you, no, that's not going to happen. But things do change, don't they? And you can never quite be certain. So rather interested to see the reaction to this, I must say.
I do not believe a word if they say there's no interest in it, because if people have shown you,
it's what they do.
Exactly, I think that's a fair comment.
If people have shown you who they are, believe it. Believe what you've seen. Don't go, it's probably all right for us. I know what they've done before, but let's give them another chance. It's like, no, this is what they will do. If they want a foot in the door, and as a way of ultimately taking over, you would imagine, because there is no precedent of them doing anything else.
This makes me wonder, as time goes on, whether there's going to reach a point where virtually every single fan base has kind of like ethical concerns with the people who own their clubs. And the reason I say that is because football clubs are getting so expensive to buy now that you're starting to really narrow the field of companies or organisations or states or whatever who can actually afford to do it. I mean, the 49ers ideally want to get Leeds up to a value in excess of £1 billion. And even like £1 billion is starting to sound quite conservative by football standards. I mean, there was a piece on The Athletic last week that was talking about Haaland trying to get himself individually to a value of £1 billion, and he's a player as opposed to a club. And do you know what? He'll probably do that because he's tapping into AI and he's tapping into gaming and virtual reality and all this stuff. And there's just money to be made all over the place. But, considering how much has been paid for this minority stake at Old Trafford, you need to be filthy, filthy rich now to own a football club. Therefore, the kind of people that you reach out to, it's the pool is diminished, put it that way. And
some of the people, I'm going to say, justify sounds like quite a loaded term, or it's quite an emotive term. I mean, people who will accept this on the basis of you need money to compete. And as you say, it's getting harder and harder to do so. You need vast, vast resources to do so. And we'll say, well, it's not Saudi Arabia. It's not a Middle East nation state who are trying to get involved in sports washing. Ultimately, it's an energy drink.
Yeah, and it's a commercial corporate company. Yeah,
yeah. So it's a branding exercise. And my counter to that is just going to be that it's not necessarily that per se. I accept that, and I accept that you do need the money. And Red Bull compared to a betting company, compared to SBO Top, whatever that was, things like that. It's a blue chip sponsor, isn't it? In the modern world,
it's not just a sponsor, though, is it?
This is the point I was going to get to. Is that ultimately it's about the other stuff. It's not. Yes. It's not the brand per se. It's what they've done to football clubs. They're a vampire, in my opinion, on football clubs. It's vampiric.
The other stuff as well is not hypothetical because, from what we're told, they are buying a stake. So it's not as if they've come in and are sponsoring the shirts, and people are saying, "Oh, what if this leads to them trying to muscle in on shares?" They are going to take a minority shareholding, but they are going to take one. The argument about money is a legitimate one. It's always really difficult to hit the sweet spot between we want to get promoted, we want to be successful in the Premier League, we want to go to Europe, we want to win trophies, this, that and the other, and we don't want certain people ploughing money into the club. And I suppose there always comes a point, if you're strict on your views about who you want to invest in your club, you almost have to accept that there'll be consequences of turning some people away, which is that you can't necessarily move forward as much as you would like or as quickly as you would like. There will be some people who will look at this and say, well, if it's really good money, helps us get promoted and it leads to a new stadium and, it properly establishes Leeds in the Premier League, then fine by me. I think there'll be a lot of people who'll be concerned about it as well.
What if it's not Leeds, though? What if it's Red Bull Leeds? What if it's Red Bull Yorkshire? That's the line for me. I mean, I don't know about you, but it's one of those things where if it comes to that, and I know the name is an intangible thing, but it's all the stuff that matters to fans, isn't it? It's the heritage, it's the legacy, it's the identity. So crucial, even though it's just an idea, and it's how you identify yourself, isn't it? For me, that'd be the line. I mean, you'd be taking on
a massive fight in this city, though. I
was going to say, personally, yeah. I would fight it every step of the way within myself, and if ultimately they got their way, I'd be done with it. So, not a chance I would.
And I know I might be in a minority. Yeah. I know that they'd probably still sell those season tickets, but it wouldn't be for me. No. I'm not in for supporting Red Bull Leeds. No. So, don't know what we're going to find a new job done. Bollocks.
But to be fair, finally a reason to do something else.
Give it all up. I mean, you will definitely get that line. As I say, they're not getting a seat on the board unless we've been misdirected on that, but I really don't think so.
Not yet anyway, Phil. Next year.
No, but you see, this is the problem.
Thin end of the wedge.
This is the problem with these stories, isn't it? That people say, but further down the line, and I'm absolutely not pretending I know what's going to happen further down the line. But for now, that is absolutely how it will be painted.
Interesting times then, Phil. Thank you very much for that. And we will catch up next week maybe, yeah?
Why not?
Because this stupid football club never sleeps.
Do we know exactly when there's going to be more clarity from the club about this? Because I understand you've spoken to them about this, but when is there going to be more details? Are we going to get to find out what percentage they own and what rights they have to stuff? And is it going to be part of a strategic link up with other Red Bull clubs? Is there going to be any sort of crossover in that type of thing?
So the way this works is that we obviously put the story to the club before we print it. It wasn't contested, but to this point they haven't commented. Hoping that they will. Hoping there'll be a chance to ask some questions about it.
They said
so. Naturally, we will. Well, the thing is, you can't really just turn up on August the 6th or whatever it is with Red Bull on your shirt, can you? People go, wait a minute.
Hang on a sec. Yeah.
Is that two bulls? Yeah. They were going to have to cut to the chase at some point. Yeah, break cover on it. And I don't think, for what it's worth, I'm not sure they see it as breaking cover, really. I think they see it as a good commercial deal, like better than good commercial deal, really valuable commercial deal. But they are pretty savvy, so I have no doubt that they'll understand the discussion this is going to provoke.
I'm very intrigued as to how this has happened.
I would like to know how this has happened as well.
Because my understanding of the 49ers was that they were more savvy than this, and I feel like this is an obvious way to completely kick off a shitstorm as we go into summer.
They're in it for profit in the long term. Then they might not be extracting money in the short term. One of those things that fans say when they know that like venture capital owns your club is they go, well, they're just going to sell all the players and trouser all the money. And that's not how it works. You can't just do that. You can't just take money out without paying dividends and all sorts of other business. But in the long term, as you said, Phil, they want to increase the value of Leeds United to £1 billion and then sell it. And this gives them a very clear path towards doing that. Yeah,
and if it's not Red Bull on the shirt, then it needs to be somebody else. And it's not always easy to find, kind of reciprocal value by trading one off for another. As I say, there would be some people who would say, I don't care about that. I'd rather we took less money and didn't have them as a sponsor. But I think if you do say that, you have to then have some compensation in your expectations of what the club can do with the squad. I'm not saying any of this is perfect, but it is basically the football world as it's become.
Christ, it's a depressing business.
Not as depressing as Wembley.
I don't know. I think a combination of it was Socios the other year, it's Red Bull this year. Ticket prices will be going up if we ever do go up. That'll be the next thing that comes in and absolutely stings everyone. I don't know.
I just think if there's one fan base who are not going to roll over, if this was to go in a direction that you really didn't want it to go, it is probably Leeds.
I'm heading down there now with the flaming torch.
Stand, Leeds, stand. Cheers, Phil. Right, we'll be back next week. Yep.
Yeah, why not?
See you in a bit then.
The Square Ball Podcast.